The Harvest Festival is a cooking contest with the prizes being nothing but body dryzer XLs, body dryzers, and tomato juice. That's actually good, because if the reward was a power berry, you'd feel obligated to win it. And that sucked because it's random whether you win the cooking contest. Even the game's guide says that while you'd expect better dishes to win, that isn't the pattern anymore. While it means that anybody could win, how is it fun that you have to save scum to do it? Isn't it more satisfying that you won because of a very complicated recipe? Well, at least it doesn't have the glitch from DS where if you lose the festival, you're guaranteed to lose it every time because it locks the recipe in. And the game has even more locations for festivals than previous games, forcing you to check where the festival is as well as its time. But I like that you can finally gift people when they're in a festival. You might not think you can do that yet because they're not told you can. When you try to play one of the many mini-games in this game, the game tries to force you to use the Wiimote nunchuck. I read that the game's motion controls are mostly just the same uninspired thing where you flick the Wiimote up. So why have them? And I love that you get warped to the animal festival as soon as you enter the screen. And it's convenient that the highest level animal is automatically entered when you talk to Kane. Second and third place also having prizes is awesome too. It's really dumb that in the Animal Festival you have to go talk to the mayor after winning it to claim your prize, when every other game has you get the prize automatically. Everyone would assume the prize is a power berry, but no, it's like 100 feed. At least this means you aren't missing out on a power berry every year at the beginning of the game. But you aren't going to know that because you won't look up the guide to find that out. You'll just assume the game is a big reward for getting an animal to 10 hearts aside from the random shining products. And it does have a big reward for that. You get a power berry for it. There's really nothing to say about festivals other than this. A lot of people in festivals that sell you stuff aren't behind stalls, so you wouldn't know they're salesmen. But I don't like half of the clothes Candace sells enough. The purple outfit is too light a shade. I love that there's no New Year's Day festival, like an animal parade. Sadly, on New Year's Eve at a certain time of the evening, it tears you away from what you're doing into a load screen and long, boring string of cutscenes and then forces you to go back home. What kind of Harvest Moon game doesn't have you start with a pet and requires you to take forever befriending wild animals to get one? I wish the game didn't let you befriend them at all, because ever since Magical Melody, it's just been another boring thing that you have to do to get 100% completion. It's not like you can adopt every animal in the game as a pet, so it's not even really 100% completion. And you're not allowed to have multiple bookshelves in one house, something that's thankfully fixed in later games. So many things about this game aren't Harvest Moon. Like the fact that I can't place a clock or stove in my original home, but can in the villas. Actually, that's not true. The problem is that there's a limit on how many electric items you can place in one house in a video game. And this game started the Story of Seasons thing of only being able to replace tables and beds and not place more. No matter how much you upgrade the house, you can't fit all of the cooking utensils onto your kitchen. On multiple playthroughs, you'll forget that and level up the house fully for nothing. The previous games weren't like that. I barely got any power berries in this game at first. They're hidden too well. It took over a year to get the first one. Normally the one you dig up, it's supposed to be the one you get really early on. But it takes too long to do it this time. Like with the rucksack upgrades, the game waits too long for you to be able to upgrade the stamina meter. By the time you're able to get these upgrades, they're useless. You would have loved those upgrades at the start of the game where you were desperate for money. All I have left to do now is fully upgrade every villa. Why do you even have the option to upgrade the villas? Why can't you choose to have the biggest house built in those land plots right away? Like in Magical Melody. I'd rather be able to buy pretty looking decorations for the house. Why can't you buy vases anymore? In this game, you can put new items in the fridges and cabinets in other houses you built instead of it sharing storage space with your main ones. And only one toolbox is allowed. So again, Magical Melody is better. It's easy to forget this and enter the house just for your ride to be warped back to the grazing field because you did that. So now it's time to talk about completing the rainbows. And I'll only talk about the stuff that actually has stuff to talk about. Eventually you're told, by the carpenter's boss of all people, that the mother tree died because of littering and people engraving their initials in it. Some magical tree. You'd think the harvest goddess would have been able to magically do maintenance on it herself. I needed a guide to get this far because why would I have thought to talk to the mayor's son of all people about the goddess quilt? It'd be faster pacing if the mayor himself told me everything Gil did. Why does he only tell you about when the mother tree died and how the clock tower needs repairs after you upgrade your house? It's already bad enough you have to mash A through so many text boxes just to be able to talk to Darren the Harvest Sprite. The Harvest Sprites in this game look ridiculous. I hate them so much. What was wrong with having them look how they did in Friends of Mineral Town? As I expected, somehow the sprite flowers don't care that you watered them until after Gil told you to talk to Dale. There's no excuse for it being even more dragged out by requiring you to talk to the mayor who will only help you in his house. So if it's a festival, you're shit out of luck. It's good that a menu in the game tells you what items you arbitrarily need in your bag to unlock the rainbow after watering the flower. But it doesn't tell you the ingredients for the good herb fish and how to get the recipe. It's a good thing it's literally just what you'd guess it to be. You have to go through the various menus with a control pad yourself to find out this menu exists. Isn't it redundant that you have to do multiple cooked recipes for Darren's rainbow? Both the grilled yam and the good herb fish? They should have had a flower there. I could wait long enough and simply buy the perfect honeydew for unlocking a rainbow. I love that your watering can doesn't have to have water to water the sprite flowers. I got all done the first year on the second playthrough, but on the first one I didn't because I didn't want to read a guide to do it all, so I missed out on my opportunity to buy stuff at the flea market that's usually only available in a later season. Bees only show up on non-rainy days, and thankfully you can wait until it stops raining the next day and still get some bees. Sometimes you need honey to make recipes. You get the various types of honey by growing flowers of specific colors, though you'll need a guide to know to grow them until a bee hovers over them. Everyone trying to unlock all the rainbows will have to grow some red flowers and wait until that happens, and the rainbows other than Darren's can't be done in the first spring. If I was designing what the rainbow recipes were gonna be, I would have it be one of every type of item that you get in normal gameplay styles, like a flower, crop, fish, and an easy to get mining item. But not all of them have that much in the way of variety. You can buy normal honey from Brownie Ranch for some reason to befriend the bear to get to the goddess spring. I hated befriending the bear. I had to walk all the way up to the mountain to it, only knowing that I could give the wild animal a gift twice a day because of the internet. And by that I mean twice in a row. That's a surprise by itself. The worst part is that you have to be careful walking along the log bridge on the way to the bear or you'll fall off. You have to make sure to just hold in one direction, which is why it really sucks that you have to use this bridge to get to the mine there. What kind of Harvest Moon game has it take so long, be so tedious, just for you to be able to visit the goddess spring? Every cutscene with the sprites has the default dialogue option be a waste of your time, which is only good for letting you see all the dialogue even if you mashed A too much. But there's no reason to have 3 dialogue options because both of the wrong options produce the same response. The third question is stupid because your character already knows how to restore the rainbows. So what you should have done was ask for his rainbow recipe. The sprites should have ended their conversations faster instead of being redundant. And it sucks that after the cutscene you have to reposition yourself to water the flower again. After Darren's flower anyways. If this was an 8-bit game, I bet you wouldn't have needed to start another cutscene to give him all the ingredients. It's great that some cutscenes have moments where they progress by themselves. Ben losing his badge is such obvious padding it's insulting. I had to re-water the flower after he told me he lost his badge. It takes a needlessly long time to get him to tell you where the badge is, including a loading screen happening before a flashback of his. It's dumb that you need to talk to Ben again to be told where he dropped his badge for it to appear on that island. I appreciate that it makes you get items for the rainbows that you never would have bothered with otherwise, since usually you just grow the cash crops, so the other crops are completely optional. What I don't appreciate is the game forcing me to use a guide to find out how to get the goddess sapling faster. At first, the reward for making every rainbow recipe is being sent to sleep early. After making all the rainbow recipes, what the game never tells you is you need to talk to Jin, the doctor who insists on a ponytail, to know where to go next. Julius has a weird design too. What I really hate is he insulted my character's fashion sense in the first meeting. Why does he say she's a work in progress? Luna did the same thing, and I hated her immediately. The fact that she's short made me think she was a kid for the whole game because of the art style. And I was as weirded out as everyone else to learn that she's eligible for marriage. It sucks that I couldn't be riding on something and meet him. So I needed a guide to tell me you can't activate cutscenes while riding to unlock him. It's pathetic how blatantly padded out the quest to plant the goddess sapling is. Why wasn't it programmed that I get the sapling by just talking to the mayor at this point? Better yet, why don't you just get the goddess sapling by completing all of the rainbow recipes? Not only did I have to go to way too many locations, but there were 2 different times where you're forced to find a seedling that dies when you try to plant it in the goddess spring. Both times you're given no indication about where to go after it dies. Jin's written to not have anything to tell you about where to go next. So the game forces you to either use a guide or try to talk to everyone again. I lucked out not having to use a guide to get the second seedling the second time, because I happened to try going through the Ganesh mine just because I get to spend more time in it. Even though normally I was in the habit of using the other mine in the hopes that I was more likely to get wonderfuls there. But I don't feel like it's actually more likely. Either way, I have to go all the way to below level 20 to get sparkling wonderfuls consistently. I miss the good games where you could be guaranteed jewels from one of the mines. Instead, you can still get ores in the gelato mine, so it feels redundant. It's mandatory to take several days in-game to finally get the seedling, because you have to know to talk to Gil, and then when the bars open, talk to the mayor at a certain day of the week and time in the bar. I had to redo the scene the first time I did it. I had to wait 2 days. Actually, that's not true. I just thought it was because if there are people in the church, you're not allowed to check and get the key. That's not true. Just Candace is there, though. You can't even see where the key is either way. Why do you have to equip the key to open the locked door instead of just pressing A? This applies to the last time you got a key, too. The cutscene with you failing to open the door takes too long and shouldn't even be a cutscene. Then you find out that after all that time unlocking the rainbows, you could have avoided all of that if the mayor was honest with you, because he had the goddess sapling locked away the whole time, though he didn't know for sure that it was the goddess sapling. He just didn't want to plant it in the spring because he didn't want to die if it wasn't the right one. After he sees you just outside of his house right after you leave it by insane coincidence, even though he doesn't really go right back inside that fast in the actual game. So why did he even leave? He has the gall to say you shouldn't take things that don't belong to you, acting like I'm the bad guy when he's the reason the island was without a mother tree for years. Why did he have to keep the sapling secret when he knew there was a possibility that it was the goddess sapling? It was obvious that regardless of whether he wanted to raise it or not, it was higher priority for him to plant it in the goddess spring. To be fair, you have to unlock a rainbow to get to Mount Gelato for access to the goddess spring to even be possible. And the mayor didn't befriend the bear either, so he would have never been able to get to the spring himself, when he's so busy. But he could have told you to befriend the bear and take his sapling past it as soon as Mount Gelato was unlocked. After you planted the right seedling, it'll only grow if you walk back into the goddess spring again the next day. And if you have enough hearts with the other villagers and wild animals. It doesn't do anything to tell you that wild animals count towards the total. Good thing I didn't have to water it because I didn't have the watering can. Good thing you only need 50 hearts in total too. So apparently it's very easy to have enough hearts already. It's so insulting that after everything I went through, I had another requirement to make the tree grow. Even though I didn't have 50 hearts in total with the villagers, it didn't matter. It doesn't exactly make it clear by island's friendship levels what is included. After the mother tree sapling grew up, a letter told me to go somewhere to watch a bunch of boring cutscenes that took forever. Though the villagers cheering me on was satisfying. But I'd rather the sprites have created that rainbow without me to save time. After the credits, I loaded my file again, and it made my character somehow end up back in the house with a day ending. And one of my rewards for beating the game was being extremely tired without a stay awake to make my character stop being as slow as molasses. That was unnecessary. And the clinic was closed, so I couldn't get a stay awake. At least there's no shipping list in this game, in that you don't have to ship the item for it to be listed, just have it at some point. You don't even need to get every quality of everything to finish it. All I can buy from On the Hook is grilled fish, when actual fish would have been convenient for the fish list and recipe list. The royal jelly and kingfish are luck-based missions. It was surprisingly easy for me, but still, it's a skull jellyfish that's really unacceptable. You have to make time to catch it because you can only catch it between 4 AM and 11, and only if you're lucky. I always knew there was a cave behind the falls and thought it was stupid that you couldn't enter the cave until after you were told by a text box after entering the falls area that the mother tree's roots slowed the falls down. There's not much to say about courting in this game because every bachelorette has the same structure when it comes to their heart events, with 2 points where they give you a gift at your house again and 2 dates and a request event. It's nice that you can give someone 2 gifts in a day, but you can't always do that. Jin accepts 2 seaweed soups, but he doesn't accept 2 herbal teas. It comes off like a glitch. I hate that the game skips to night for no reason just because of the date. I love that Selena doesn't really have a request event because it doesn't involve giving somebody a gift and it's not an inconvenience. It's activated automatically just by visiting the island where her favorite gifts are. But sometimes it's needlessly hard to find them because the items appear hidden by the wild plants, and I have to walk all over the place mashing A trying to find what's keeping more items from spawning. It's better to just buy the pineapples. Renee might as well not have a request event either depending on the player because it's fulfilled by completing Darren's rainbow. I don't like that you have to talk to them between 10 and 11 to schedule their 4 and 6 heart events to meet up with them on time, which you'll still fail at half the time, because you have to change your routine to reach them so early, and you need a guide to know to do that. You'll probably be following a guide for that anyways though. The love scenes are underwhelmingly short in dialogue, doing basically nothing to develop the characters. All the love confession scenes consist of is the character says she loves you, and that's it. I'm glad I didn't waste too much time though. It's great that if the person you're wooing has an event set up, then trying to give her a gift will automatically make the event start. It means that you don't have to literally talk to them every day to get the event to start, so you're less likely to need a guide. You can see that you get the talking affection bonus just from giving them a gift, which is why you're not gonna talk to them every day. Character-specific dialogue is so random, you're probably gonna get sick of hearing about the weather and stuff. So yeah, you're not gonna talk to them every day after giving them a gift anymore. If you aren't reading a guide for it, you'd have to get lucky to trigger Inessa's request event, because you'd never guess you have to leave your house at 9 AM to get it. Luna won't accept any gifts when she's knitting, when realistically she'd stop what she's doing, so it's forced to wait an hour until she's stopped. It's not that big a deal because this only happened to me once. If you time it right, you won't deal with this. But I'm more mad because this happens way more in Story of Seasons. The request event for Kathy is unbearable because it requires winning a motion-controlled minigame. Good thing she's not exclusive to this game. Beating the horse race for marrying Kathy was painful and took tons of tries. Not so that it took over an hour. It was easier than I thought. But even with the max hearts horse, trying to figure out when to steer in order to win is very trial and error. Obviously, I had to map the motion controls to the buttons, and that made it a long button masher, where you have to alternate buttons at that. But obviously, even with swinging the remote, it would still suck. Chase's request event requires you to ship 30 things that you cooked yourself. This would be fine on the first playthrough, but he's never going to be the first bachelor you choose. It takes so long to unlock him. You're going to be at winter by the time you get this request event. You'll have to go out of your way to do it, because, at least for me anyways, I don't try to buy everything in the game a second time. If this was the first playthrough, I would have just naturally done this request by accident. But it's not like it's already fulfilled by the time you talk to him because of all the things you cooked, which it should have been. It's not like your character is in-game telling him how many dishes he cooked, so he'd only know how many dishes you cooked telepathically. So he should already know that you cooked over 30 dishes by now. With Julius, you need to give him a sapphire or a ruby. This is why you should romance everyone in town before getting married in these games. On your first playthrough, this is going to be fine because you're still going to be trying to buy everything, so you'll just make a bunch of money towards that when mining. It takes so long to unlock Julius that you bought everything required for marriage, which is everything that you actually care about buying the second time playing the game. So you have to go to your way to do these things. Thank goodness there's no relationship decay. Eventually I figured out that relationship decay is a good thing, because it means that befriending everyone is pointless, so you don't have to do it for 100% completion. This game doesn't have relationship decay, which is convenient for romancing all of the bachelors. If there's relationship decay, you'd have to talk to the bachelorettes a lot more often. My only complaint for getting married is that you have to go all the way to the falls to get a blue feather when other games let you buy it in the general store. And the guide for the game implies that the game's needlessly picky about where you're allowed to propose and get a marriage accepted. The blue feather can be accepted regardless of heart level. And having a kid doesn't have a heart requirement either. Only a guide would tell you all that though. It's especially convenient if you thought to have a save file with every bachelorette fully wooed, because it saves you time getting all their hearts to 8. It sure would suck if this was the last game where you could do that. Getting married slows down the pacing because the house is too crowded, so it's harder to exit. And at the end of every year, you're forced to watch another cutscene when you already have to do that. At least you aren't forced to remember her birthday. You can choose the gender of your kid. When your kid's old enough to accept gifts, she starts referring to you as father, so it's annoying that the ROM hack I'm playing didn't fix that. Anyways, when she gets told to pick up eggs, she doesn't at first, most of the time. Why can she fail to do chores very consistently? It's already bad enough if you tell her to do chores, then eventually you'll see a text box telling you she did it. She only ever waters the crops on your original property. It is garbage that go for a walk is the default option. You have to be careful not to pick it every day. I also wish that instead of a chores option, it just had the chores in the original menu so that picking them didn't take as long. I couldn't find out what gifts your character's kid likes, so it's awesome that the jam I prepared just in case she liked it works. And it's good pacing that instantly after she talks to you about your gift, you get shown the box asking what you want to do with her. I won't walk with her, because if you walk too far from your pet or kid according to the guides, it hates you for it. Basically, if you walk too far, they get sad. But it's not like it decreases their hearts though. Not every rival can even get married. For example, Luke never gets married to anyone but you no matter what. I'm torn on the fact that you only have to have the rival at 3 hearts for him to marry the person, and it's only on the second heart event that it happens. And it can happen any time if you go to the right place. And it doesn't matter how much the bachelorette likes you this time. This is the first game where if you work part-time at the wrong place enough and go the wrong place, you might see a rival marry your love interest before you do in the first year. But I don't mind because it never happened to me, You have to try for that to happen. And the store you're most encouraged to work part-time at is on the hook. And while that raises the hearts of Renee's love interest, you can only activate the heart events on a sunny Monday while she's at the falls with him. And you're not going to be visiting the falls to give her a gift. You're going to be visiting Brownie Ranch. And it always has to be sunny for rival events for some reason. Selena doesn't have a rival, and she's the best looking bachelorette in the game. And Luke's the best looking bachelor. So it's not like it matters that much if you get everyone married. I said it was torn this being good game design because when you've done everything else in the game, you want to get the rivals married off. So we're like only having to raise their hearts to 3 to do it. It's super convenient because the earlier they get married, the earlier they have a kid to befriend. Another reason it's easy to get rivals married is all of their events take place in the same location. The prospective couple is never dating in these scenes. And because there's only 2 events, the rival's proposal always comes out of nowhere, and because the proposal was done by a friend, it being accepted makes a person come off as desperate. They get married too early, so I'm not as glad they got married aside from the 100% completion thing. Maya's first event with Chase just has him call her cooking horrible and hurt her feelings. How is that a love event? Then she proposes to him in the next scene, and he says she's just in love with his cooking. And all she says that she wants to eat his cooking every day, which doesn't really require marriage. She could just ask him for cooking. And he calls her an airhead for thinking that he wasn't going to marry her. Chase is a jerk, and Maya would make a bad wife. What were the writers thinking when they shipped these two? The only thing they got right there is that they work in the same place. Julius works with Mina, but his love interest is Candace, even though he called her ugly when she was little. And somehow that one instance is blamed for Candace becoming a withdrawn wallflower for the rest of her life. I assumed she was always that way because that'd be realistic. Sure, marry your childhood bully. You would think that Julius wouldn't have he bullied someone as part of his backstory. As soon as you wake up, the rival wedding starts on the day meant for it, so it's unavoidable for you. And you spawn at the church at noon afterwards. The New Game Plus pretends to have you playing as your kid, but it's rushed because you look the same and can even marry the parent of that kid. It's just a file where you can start over with the money you used to have. To start the New Game Plus, you need to make the Journey rucksack instead of just being able to go to the Goddess Spring and request it. After I gave her the Journey rucksack and my wife said no, talking to her didn't fix it, and I was left with no direction about what to do after that. That sucks because you might think you need to look up a guide after this. And some people might save the game after this even though doing that means they can't use their file anymore. Because after you go to bed, the kid disappears, and when you go to bed again, it goes into the cutscenes leading to the New Game Plus. The kid disappearing looks like a glitch, which is another thing that'll confuse you into looking it up. The perks from the New Game Plus make it the only way to replay the game, if you don't have a cheat device. If you do, then you're better off using the Max Tool Skills code, because the New Game Plus only makes you start out at level 3 for the tools. It'll be great in the future games where you can't use cheat codes. So what's really great about the New Game Plus is that if you start with enough money, you can just buy the marriage requirement stuff instantly. If you relied on a max money code, it'd take forever to waste enough money so that there's a point to earning money after that. The gender of your kid matters because if you pick the kid that's the opposite gender to your protagonist, you'll play as the opposite gender when you start a New Game Plus. Since I picked a daughter, my New Game Plus forced me to pick one of the bachelors for marriage. That's not a deal breaker because at least 2 of the bachelors seem appealing, Luke and Owen. Obviously Calvin looks good too, but I don't have the version of the game where I can marry him. When I play Harvest Moon games, I save the bachelors for last, personally. The bachelorettes have better looking character designs. The bottom line is, I suppose this is a good game, and that you can earn money to buy stuff. In that sense, every Harvest Moon game is a good game. But there's so many loading screens. The mining is really the only gameplay style that I enjoy. And it's hard to get used to and push through the first spring because it's so weird. And has slow pacing like the slow walking speed. which makes me feel like I could never stand the game without being able to play it in fast forward. It's lame that you can only plant 6 crops with seeds instead of 9, and you have to make sure you're to the side of the row you're planting but not too far away from it, or too close to it, or you'll waste seeds. Harvest Moon 3 didn't let you waste seeds. The game's better to play over Magical Melody when you're not married yet because it's got a better inventory and tool upgrade system. You can see the area of effect, and I think you have more stamina. But it takes so much longer to befriend everyone that's not worth all that extra time. And there's a lot of different downgrades from Magical Melody and DS. This might be a better game than Magical Melody in most cases. The fact that you can do part-time work at every business, I think that's better for raising everyone's affection than planting trees, because they don't have to be outside. You'd be surprised how few of the villagers go outside in that game. Farming's better in this game because you can walk over crops and harvest them, so you can have every square of the land plot full of crops. It's still not better than DS though, because you can't hire the sprites to do your farm work. And again, the Mythic Watering Can is so much better than this watering can. Ranching's better than DS, because you don't have the stupid touchscreen minigame as a requirement for better than small products. You'd be surprised how low the heart requirement is for perfect animal products. In that sense, I actually appreciate the RNG. Although as usual, the animations for taking care of the animals are slower than DS. Only mining and fishing were made slightly worse. With mining, it's because the confusion factor is unbearable instead of easy to adjust to, and you have to get your ores refined the next morning, when they could have just had the ores sell as much as the refined stuff. With fishing, it's because I'm not guaranteed to get a bite and it drains too much stamina. It makes me mad when my character keeps forcibly taking the lure out of the water, but at least it's better than the farming in Magical Melody. You don't have to stand in between the crops to water all of them with the best skill. And most people would recommend this game over DS anyways because there's no file corruption problems.